Welcome to All Pro Football Data. My name is Jim Coburn, and today's episode we're talking about the top 50 prospects based on data in the 2024 NFL draft class. So we're going to be looking at those prospects, but before we get to them, stay tuned to the end of the video until we reveal the last top 50. But we're going to talk a little bit about why data matters. So we're going to talk about correlations. We're going to talk about what I use to evaluate these prospects to get this top 50 list. But more importantly, I'm going to show you why the data stuff that I do matters. Because that's the biggest thing. Why are you watching this channel? Why are you watching me versus watching PFF? Why are you watching me versus watching an NFL analyst out there or a film scout or different stuff like that? Like, you need to have the why. The why is very important in whatever you're doing. And this is the why to a certain extent is I'm different from everybody else because I use data grades. My data grades are formulated from statistics. They're formulated from age data, production data, athleticism data, and those other sort of things. And it's all condensed down into one score, which is what the data grade is or the approximate value score is, based on how past prospects have performed in these particular areas. And the results show correlations. So this is correlation coefficients for data grades, okay? Correlation coefficient for people that are new to the channel and new to statistics, all it is it's a number to determine how much of a correlation you have between one data point and another data point. And in this case, we're looking at NFL performance, approximate value, if you will, at every position on here, okay? MEAV is mobile quarterbacks. PEAV is pocket passing quarterbacks. And then all the other positions are listed down there. Even though there are numbers in the red, okay, a 0.39 or a 0.41 correlation coefficient is a pretty darn good correlation coefficient, meaning that there is a correlation. And it's not super strong, but it is a strong correlation. So anybody who's done statistics, you can look it up yourself. You can Google it yourself. But anything that shows a correlation coefficient in the 0.4 to zero point 0.5 or higher range is a fairly strong correlation. So the data grades that I use have strong correlations for success. They're not as good as draft status. So if you look in the middle here, you'll see draft status. And draft status is much higher in terms of success at the position, at multiple positions in the NFL. So if you just look at draft status, you're actually going to hit on players a lot better. And that's just because of opportunities they get. When you have a player who's drafted in the first round, second round, third round, a team's going to give them more opportunities to be the starter, more opportunities to do different, things like that. And they're not going to have to fight for playing time. A lot of times they're going to be the starter based purely on the fact that they drafted them in the first round. That happens a lot. So they're going to get opportunities to actually see the football field and contribute compared to other players who are in the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round. But why it matters, okay? The stuff that I do matters because there is a correlation to the data grades that I do. And it's a very strong correlation across the board in terms of quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, edge, defensive tackles, linebackers, cornerbacks, and safeties. Offensive line, I think, could be a little bit better, but that's because I don't really have statistics for offensive linemen in terms of, offensive linemen don't catch, they don't catch touchdowns. They don't get sacks, if you will. So because of that, all they have to go on is their athleticism, their physical metrics, their age, their level of competition, those types of things. So that is definitely something I need to improve on and something that I, as an evaluator, need to get better at from a data perspective. But every other position is fairly strong. When you add draft status plus EAV or data grades, you get a much higher correlation when you do that. So essentially, you make draft status better when you adjust it for what their data grade was. So you will hit on prospects more often when they have draft status on their side and they have a good data grade, is essentially what the conclusion is from all of this. So I'm going to be doing more work into this to kind of increase the success rates and numbers and everything else like that. But this is why it matters, okay? I'm showing you why it matters. that from a statistical standpoint, the data grades that I use have a correlation to them. Meaning, if a prospect scores high in terms of their data grade, there is a higher chance of them becoming a successful NFL player. And by the same token, if they have a high data grade and they're drafted in a high value round, the first round, second round, third round, it improves their overall data framework as well in terms of their correlation. Now, correlation is not causation. There is no certainty in statistics. There's just probability. So you're dealing with probability here. But this is the why. This is why I do what I do. This is why it matters. This is the whole basis of everything that I do. So I hope you guys understand that and understand this chart here at all the positions. You can pause the video if you want to, refer to this in the future. But this is why data matters right here. Now, getting to another aspect of this, which is the percentage of 90 plus percentile NFL starters. So, prospects that are in the 95 to 99 percentile. This is how I divided it up. 95 to 99 percentile prospects, from a positional standpoint, are typically Pro Bowlers, All Pro type prospects. And at the quarterback position, 80% of 95 to 99 percentile NFL starters at the quarterback position had at least a 70 to 99 percentile data grade in terms of their pocket passer data grade. 60 to 99 was 87%. So 87% of starting NFL quarterbacks had at least a 60 or higher data-based grade compared to their peers in terms of high outcome NFL starters. So what that means is that you would like for them to be within that range of possibilities, because not only is there a correlation to this, but if you want a high impact NFL starter, they better have a decent data grade at the position. And then of course when you look at 90 to 99 percentile, so now we're getting into like starters at the position, long-term starters, the Andy Daltons, those types of players. Same things are there as well, but there's a little less of a threshold at the bottom end of that. But then this is like this at every position, guys. It's a little bit better. I mean, quarterback has a little, it's a little more spread out, if you will, at the quarterback position. But take a look at the running back position. 86% of 95 to 90 percentile running backs, Pro Bowlers, All Pro running backs, had a 70 or higher data grade in terms of their pre-draft prospect data grade, regardless of draft status. That's bonkers. That's bonkers. But of course, you get to 90 to 99 percentile, same difference. And this is at every position, guys. Take a look at wide receivers. 88% of 90 to 90 plus percentile NFL wide receiver starters, Pro Bowl, All Pro wide receivers. Puka Nacua had a 70 percentile data grade. Those prospects had those data grades. So again, Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame, All Pro wide receivers, 70 and higher. 70 and higher. The vast majority. So I emphasize data grades because they're important. They're very important. There's a correlation there, and the actual percentages of NFL starters with success rates had good data grades. They had above average data grades in many ways, and better, if you will. Take a look at tight ends. Similar results. Take a look at offensive line. Similar results. Take a look at edge. Better results. 96%. Let me repeat. 96% of 95 to 99.99 percentile edge rushers had 90 percentile, actually 70 or higher percentile data grades. 96%. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous, guys. Moving on to interior defensive linemen. 88% had 70 or higher. 60 to 99 was 98% at the interior defensive line position. Taking a look at linebackers here. Crazy numbers. Cornerback, same difference. Take a look at safeties. Look at the safeties. 90% of 90 to 99.9 percentile NFL starters at the safety position had a 90 percentile data grade. 90% of them. So every special safety you could think of, for the most part, from the Ed Reeds, Earl Thomases, Sean Taylors, Troy Polamalu's, were in the high 90 percentile in terms of their data grades. That's why it matters. That's why it's important to pay attention to data grades at every position. Okay. Moving on to positional value. So before we get into the actual top 50, I just want to speak a little bit about positional value, which is, just add this little thing so you guys can see it, which is it shows you the top or the ceiling for a prospect, the floor for a prospect, and then their overall positional value, which takes into account their ceiling and their floor. So this is how teams really should be viewing prospects from an approximate value standpoint. From a ceiling perspective, you know how high this prospect could be, to its floor, which is if you don't necessarily get a high impact player, where are they at, for example. So, for example, at the wide receiver position has a really high ceiling position. If you hit at the wide receiver position, it's almost like hitting at a quarterback. It really helps your team out a lot when you hit at that position. But at the same time, if you miss on that position, it has a very low floor. It's very low in terms of the wide receiver position. So it's kind of like a boom or bust type of position. Either you hit and you have a high high, or you bust and you have a low low, if you will. And then there's some positions where it's worse than that, like tight end. A tight end has a very low floor and a very low ceiling. Safety has a very low floor and a low ceiling, if you will. So this is kind of what those positions are in terms of positional value, and it's something to think about once the draft comes up. Next up, this is something that was requested from a couple different people, which is, let's take a look at this draft class. Let's look at the forest instead of the trees, okay? This draft class, compared to other draft classes, this shows you the number of 90 plus to 99.99 percentile data grade positions. It goes by position by position. It goes by the number, the total number of those prospects in those individual draft classes. And then it goes to 80 to 89 percentile in terms of that, which is another area to kind of be in, good, decent data grade would be in the 80 to 90 plus percentile, if you will, at the position. And this kind of shows you all those positions all at once. You can pause the video real quick to get that information right here. Then, of course, you have offensive versus defensive data strengths. So this is something to kind of talk about. This is a little sound bite for you. In 2024, there are 80 to 99 percentile offensive positions or prospects in this particular draft class based on data. There's only 47 defensive prospects with 80 to 99.99 percentile data grades. So there's 33 more offensive positions with 80 to 90 plus percentile data grades compared to the defensive positions. This is a heavily loaded offensive position class, guys. So if you're going to be drafting prospects in this class, draft offensive linemen. If you need a defensive lineman or a defensive position, draft them as soon as possible, because you're going to lose out on some of those opportunities if you wait on those particular prospects. It's not to say that there isn't good defensive prospects in this draft class. It's just that there's more scarcity. There's less of them in this draft class. So I know a lot of times people have been saying that there's going to be a ton of offensive positions taken, which is true. But I think you will see a bit of a scarcity mindset in this particular draft class. You're going to see teams that are going to be that have a major need on the defensive side of the football. They're going to make some decisions that you may think are bonkers, if you will. And the reason why they're making those decisions is because of how much depth or lack of depth there is in this particular draft class. Because teams have to fill a need. Don't let them fool you. Best player available is a nice little motto, but sometimes you have to draft for need. You have to draft because you need this position. So this is just something to think about as we enter this draft, is that there are a lot less defensive positions with decent data grades compared to the offensive positions. And teams might need to make a decision on those positions or as much as they can in this particular draft class. Next up, positional ranks. So this looks at them position by position in terms of the best years for these, total number of data grades at the different positions. You can pause the video and watch this, but I just like to add this in here to kind of give you an idea of what this draft class is probably going to look like from a data perspective, if you will, at the quarterback position and all the other positions. So with all that out of the way, let's get to the top 50. So these are my top 50 prospects based on data. This is not based on my eyes. This is not based on me watching film. This is based on me taking all my data, condensing it down, doing all this work I've done for the last 6+ months, and boiling it down into one number. And these are the top 50 prospects, guys. This isn't exactly how I would draft them in an actual team environment. There's lots of different factors to also consider in terms of team fit, coach fit, character, all those different kinds of things. But this is my top 10 based on data, based on the work that I've done. This is what the data says about this particular draft class. So the top 10 prospects are Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., J.C. Latham, J.J. McCarthy, Jackson Powers Johnson, Amarius Mims, Graham Barton, Brock Bowers, Tanner Bortolini, and Joe Alt. Those are the top 10 prospects, and I did not mention a single defensive player. That tells you how offensive heavy this draft class is. Next up, picks 11 to 20. We start to see some defensive players. Okay, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., probably not going to be a first rounder, but he had a very high data score. Of course, you have Fashanu from Penn State, Roger Rosengarten, Cedric Gray, probably not going to be a first rounder, but he definitely had a very high data grade. Talise Fuaga, Ben Sinote, Xavier Worthy, Cooper DeJean, Brian Thomas Jr., and Kingsley Sua. Take a look at that. 3 defensive players. 3 out of 10 in this particular area. So the top 20 only has 3 defensive players that are in the top 20 from a data perspective. That's crazy. That's great. I've never quite seen a draft class like this, if you will. So this is crazy. This just kind of tells you what this draft class is like. Then, of course, we get to the top 21 to 30. We start to see some more defensive players in here. Dallas Turner is in here. He's probably going to go much higher than this. And again, it's because of scarcity. He is the top edge rusher in this particular draft class. But what else do you got? You got a banged up, the edge rusher from Utah, Joan Ellis. So I mean, there's not much to pick from here. But anyways, Jaheim Bell, tight end, he's in here. Brandon Coleman, Troy Fatanu. Then of course you have Cameron Kitchens. Probably not going to go this high. And yes, I do know he didn't do so well at the combine, but he definitely produced well in terms of production. Rome Odunze at wide receiver, probably going to go higher than this, but still, a good range. Kool-Aid McKinstry. Then of course you have Caleb Williams and Mason McCormick, which for some reason kind of reminds me of like a baking company. And of course you get to 31 to 40. Jalen Ford, Adonai Mitchell, Kalen Bullock, Jonah Ellis is here, Jarrett Kingston, Tyler Guyton, Cooper Beebe, Audric Estime, Dadrian Taylor Demerson at the safety position. A lot of safeties in the top 50. I know it's crazy, but there was a lot of safeties that tested well in terms of 90+ percentile. And then the final list, Dominique Hampton, Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, Benny Bishop Jr., Troy Franklin, Tylen Grable, Blake Fisher, Gottlieb, Dylan McMahon, and then Ray Davis. That completes the top 50. So this is the top 50 prospects based on data in this particular draft class. If you want to see the top 100, go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/jcoburn. Also check out my Twitter at Geometrics, or which is formerly which is called X now. Also check out my draft guide by the 2024 NFL Draft Analytics Guide, available today. And when you do that, you will learn about all these prospects. Regardless of where they go, that guide is immensely important. It talks about the data grades that I do. It talks about the correlations. It talks about all the different kind of stuff in there, and goes position by position, prospect by prospect. So that is an invaluable guide to not only learn about the draft class that we're talking about today, but learn about the player that your team drafts. Okay, very important to watch that as well. So with all that stuff out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you liked this video. If you have any questions or anything like that, be sure to leave a comment below. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.